Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs encounters video. I thought I would mix another one of these here as I'm continuing to do your mysteries and disappearances suggestions. Again, people seem to really like the aliens and UFOs playlists. So there's a lot of views, a lot of comments. So I thought, again, just as a nice treat, I would mix this unique encounter here. A little bit of a caveat: the user is mentioning that it could all just be a dream, but they leave it open to state that could also be just a real experience. Reading the information myself, I'm like 50-50 on it, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it. It comes from the reddit.com website, subreddit Alien Encounters, a user by the name of Impossible Coconut 5, and they titled theirs as, "Did I meet one or was it just a dream?" So let's go ahead and let's share this information here, and then I'll give my thoughts and opinions on it afterward. So here's what they've stated. I've struggled with the idea of sharing my experience, mostly because I don't know if it actually happened or if it was just a dream. One night in the summer, when I was about 10 or 11, I was awake in the middle of the night, and I could hear the horses running around the pasture as if something had happened. I decided to get up and go check on things. At that time, my family had a massive old barn, and we lived in the middle of nowhere. And so I walked through the door of the barn and found a very large quote-unquote man, as white as snow, climbing into the hayloft. I remember being startled but not scared. He turned around and looked at me, and then slowly lowered himself back down. He took a few steps towards me before he knelt down and put out his hand like one would do with a stray animal. As I looked at him, I felt like he looked sad and tired, and not at all like he would do me any harm. And so I decided to take his hand and walk him towards our kids' hangout space, which was just a space in the barn where we had some old couches, a few toys, and a radio. As soon as he saw the radio, he became more animated, ran towards it, and then started messing around with it. This went on for a little bit, and I kept asking him what he needed the radio for. He never said a word, not one word. He wouldn't give me a name, so I started calling him Radio. After some time, he sat the radio down and then sat down on the couch. I brought over my favorite horse book and then started thumbing through the pages, showing him all of my favorite horse breeds. Eventually, he gently took the book from me and closed it as if to say, "I'm done." And so I got up to put the book away, and he laid down on the couch. I remember him being so large that his head was on the armrest while his legs hung over the other armrest at the knee. He was a giant, pure white, and I don't recall any hair. His eyes were jet black, but they weren't huge or angular. If anything, they slanted downward and were beady. After he fell asleep, I decided to go back into the house and go to bed, but I put a blanket over him before I went in. And so I woke up in the morning, and the whole experience came flooding back to me. My feet were dirty, as if I had been outside during the night, and I grabbed some snacks and ran out to the barn. I ran to our hangout space and found everything as I would have expected it. The blanket was on the floor, the book was sitting on the table, and the radio was out of place. But he was gone. It's important to know that I had a habit of sleepwalking at this time in my life, so it's possible that this was all just a dream. At first, I thought he was just a very, very, very strange person, and I hoped he found safety. The memory never left me, and by the time I was a teen, I had decided that I had dreamed the whole thing and then let it go. But then the movie Prometheus came out, and I agreed to go see it with some friends. When the tall white alien came on screen, I nearly jumped out of my seat. It wasn't an exact likeness, but it was like seeing a ghost. At the time, I knew absolutely nothing about aliens, and the only one I had ever heard of was the classic Little Green Men. Nonetheless, I forced myself to let it go and move on. That memory could not be real, so I must have dreamt it. I don't know. As time passed, I started wondering how I could have imagined a being that I had never heard of. Could that have really happened? Could radio be real? And then finally, has anyone else experienced something like this? And then that's it. That's everything that the user Impossible Coconut 5 mentioned in their encounter. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. First off, this is a very warm encounter, right? It's actually a pretty nice one. It's pretty much this user, don't know if it's a boy or girl, but they were young at the time, finding this alien, whatever it was, there in the barn, and then the alien almost acting in a childlike manner, almost as if it was happy to have this company, and then it was interacting with the user as they went over to one area involving that, I guess they called it that kids hangout space, and then started going through some of the things there, including the book, including the toys, and then finally the namesake radio that this alien was enthralled with. But overall, it gave me the impression that, yeah, it was a very warm experience, almost like that movie E.T., the extraterrestrial, how when Elliot met E.T. and then they became buddies of sorts. That's the same situation, the same impression that I got on here. What do you guys think, though, as far as it being real or not? There is that caveat I mentioned earlier about the user stating about them sleepwalking. So maybe they were sleepwalking, maybe they were out there in the barn physically, and maybe whatever interactions they had with this quote-unquote alien radio, in their case, it could have all been real except for the alien itself. So in other words, they were physically out there, but they were dreaming it at the same time. I don't know. Somebody let me know. I do not sleepwalk. I don't know anyone else that does, but someone that does here on this channel, if you let me know what it's like, are you basically awake but sleeping at the same time? So in other words, you're almost like hallucinating. Is it something like that? Because if so, that could explain this experience here. Or it could be 100% real. It could actually be that the user, because of the dirt that was on their feet, obviously indicating that they were out there in the barn, and then also the stuff being out of line, like in other words, the blanket, the toys, the radio, it all matches what the user was experiencing from the night before. Then it could be 100% real. Also, the fact that they were out there in the middle of nowhere, another indication of usual circumstances involving alien and UFO encounters. That could be something where this alien truly was there, and it just happened to be at that same time that the user went over to that barn. It almost plays out like a TV show, like a movie, right? When it comes to this specific encounter. But if anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. Interesting too about the way it was described. It was very tall. In fact, the user did a follow-up post stating that they approximated it about 9-10 feet tall, solid white, again almost like that movie Prometheus when it comes to those creatures there, and having those beady eyes. Definitely a unique encounter. Everything else involving other encounters from aliens is a lot different in terms of them being shorter, different color, and so on. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.